Consumer and producer surplus. Consumer and producer surplus are ways of measuring how efficiently markets do their job of allocating goods and services amongst people. That is, we say that these are ways of measuring the allocative efficiency of a particular market. Okay, let's go back to our market supply and demand curve. As we've shown previously, the market equilibrium is the combination of price and quantity where supply and demand curves intersect. So the equilibrium quantity changes hand at the equilibrium price. For the moment, let's say we have an equilibrium price in our market of $10. However, if everything sells at $10, there are people in this market on that demand curve who were willing to pay higher prices and are getting greater value than the amount they're actually paying. So if you look over on the left there in the diagram, there are people who, if the market price were $12, would still buy. So they value it more highly than the $10 price. And there are a smaller group of people who would even be willing to pay $14, but are getting the good for $10. It's almost like these last two groups are getting the good on sale at a lower price than what they would actually be willing to pay. This difference between the price of a good, what it's actually selling for in the market, and what people are willing to pay is called consumer surplus. And if we were to add up the surplus of all the people in the market who are actually buying the good, we would get the area of that triangle over there. So consumer surplus is the difference between what people pay and what they would have been willing to pay. It's the area between the demand curve and the horizontal line at the market price. So with linear demand curves, like we've been drawing in this course, and by the way, in the real world, demand curves aren't usually linear, but it's a lot easier to work with them in class. Anyway, with this linear demand curves, we get the area of that triangle there. Notice that it's the area below the demand curve, but above the market price. But the opposite is true for producers. With our market price of $10, there are producers who would have been willing to sell their product for less than that equilibrium price. But they can sell it at a higher price than they would have accepted our equilibrium price, our $10 price. So for producers, these producers are getting a surplus that is the area that is below the price level but above the supply curve. And again, for linear supply curves, this is a triangle. So when you put these two together, we have consumer surplus and producer surplus as these two triangles on either side of the equilibrium price. And both consumers and producers get a surplus in equilibrium in a market. But notice one thing. Suppose we were to impose a level of production below the equilibrium amount of production. Then we would be chopping off part of our surplus here. We would lose some of the consumer surplus and the producer surplus to the right of that imposed production level. The amount of surplus we lose is called dead weight loss. And we'll use that concept when we discuss what it is that, some of the reasons why people believe that monopoly can be a problem. So the size of the consumer and producer surplus put together measures the efficiency of the market. The larger the total surplus across producers and consumers, the greater the value produced in the market, the greater the allocated efficiency.